Thank you.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us for today's town hall. We will get started in just a moment once we give everybody a chance to get in from the waiting room. We'll get started in just about 30 seconds as we still got people coming in. All right, let's go ahead and get started today. And more people will come in as we're getting through the intro, but I don't want to waste any more time this hour with all the panelists we have here. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Maggie Bittner, and I am the head of education for SIA. Today is the second in a series of town halls that we're hosting with SAM magazine. As we all know, this winter is going to look so different for everybody in regards to resort operations, capacity, travel, and opportunities available to our consumers. Today, we're going to take a deeper dive into how we can work together to manage consumer expectations on the slopes, as well as help highlight different winter recreation opportunities, whether you're a core participant or a beginner. Special thanks to our series moderator, Olivia, publisher of SAM magazine. She is the perfect person to help guide us through this series of conversations. Today's discussion is called Exploring Alternatives to Resort-Based Downhill. I'm pleased to welcome today's panelists, Alexa Bernotavicz from Bretton Woods, and I know I just murdered that last name as I was saying it, Reese Brown from Cross Country Ski Areas Association, Francois Goulet from Rossignol, North America, and Amy Ohran from Boreal and Soda Springs out in California. This conversation is going to be a conversation between our panelists. However, we encourage you to use the Q&A tool down at the bottom of your screen to submit questions. Olivia and I will keep eye on those throughout and try to answer as many as we can. If we don't get to many, we will be able to follow up and use them for a future town hall. So I'll turn it over to you, Olivia.
Great, thanks so much, Maggie, and thanks for the opportunity to share in presenting what we think is a super important topic and one that we are actively discussing on the resort operations side. So it's fun to kind of bring the two industry sides together and discuss this. So it's definitely an important topic. And so, you know, as the snow melted and the lockdown remained in place, a more casual user group joined those committed outdoor enthusiasts who were seeking solace and socially distant fun. And we all saw the trailheads across the country this spring and summer. They were packed. Cars were down the roads, in some cases a mile or two. The bike parks were packed, lakes and golf courses. Many operators saw hands down their best months in July and August for bike parks, aerial adventure parks, golf courses, scenic lift rides, and hiking trails. Sales of bikes and camping gear were in the double-digit increases. You combine that with the increased presence of second homeowners in some of our resort communities, which we were hearing about in several instances. The flexibility that we know is happening right now with online school kids and, of course, everybody working from home. So, you know, all those trends compiled together, we think winter recreation could see its highest demand yet from a new audience. And so as operators and suppliers and buyers, I think we all expect this increased interest in getting outdoors, particularly, you know, in the self-propelled recreation like hiking and biking, to translate into a high demand for winter activities in 2021. This all while dealing with, of course, COVID-19. So today we are discussing what alternatives exist for participants who may not be able to partake in the traditional downhill activities this year, and how can the industry embrace these new opportunities and help grow participation to a group who may be experiencing winter sports for the first time. So with that, Amy, I'd like to start with you, Amy Ohran, who's the president and GM of Boreal in Soda Springs, California. we have done stories as well as other people on what Soda Springs had started years ago, a little bit ahead of their time in developing basically a snow play, a giant snow play area. And it's, so this is well before COVID. So tell us a little bit, for the audience that may not know, about Planet Kids Mountain Park and how you will adapt this to a possible increase in our mountain environments from families showing up.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. And just like you said, we are seeing demand at an all-time high. This summer, we operated a kind of an evolved version of our summer camp experience that traditionally was overnight. And we pivoted that model this summer to be a day camp. And just like in our mountain bike parks and our industry and a lot of outdoor experiences, we really did see a new guest, and the demand really was all time. We had, in a lot of ways, our most successful summer ever, and we are certainly seeing that demand build as we move into winter. And a long-standing opportunity that we've had here in the Tahoe area is there is a kind of insatiable appetite for introduction to snow. You know, we have a lot of great attributes, and that we're the closest ski area to 14 million people that are within a day's drive market. And the desire to have a family experience in snow has always been really high. And as the closest resort to the Bay Area, this has really been a market opportunity that we've been focused on for decades, particularly at our Soda Springs resort. In that's a, you know, kind of started as a value area. It's a place where a lot of the multicultural families feel very comfortable, and it's had a lot of organic growth over the last couple of decades. And it's really based on a snow play experience that targets young kids and families. And when we say young kids, we're talking barely starting to walk. You know, we have lesson experiences or learn to trial experiences for toddlers that this is in no means a low volume experience, upwards of 20,000 a year for this kind of 0 to 7 age group, and the whole family that comes together. It's a really, it's snow play based, and it's a very highly animated venue that kind of attracts people through snow play and mini tubing and carousels and a larger tubing experience. But we also have a ski and snowboard opportunity that's part of the whole package. And it's really built around simplicity, where there's not a whole lot of choice of when do you want to start? Do you want to ski or do you want to snowboard? There's no rush to get through a rental experience. It's arrive and then just kind of choose your pathway, choose your pace, and stay with your family. And I think that is the biggest key in how we built this program, but also how we are going to succeed even further in this next couple of years, because having the experience with your family, one, is a desire, but it's also a way to service volume in cohort groups as opposed to just trying to recreate mass lesson experiences. The ultimate goal is to get our trial participants to, once they've kind of gotten comfortable with just figuring out snow, to once they tube, they, you know, the climbing volcanoes, that they opt to try skiing and snowboarding. And we are more than 50% actually get onto skis and snowboards. And it's a parent-taught, parent-assisted learn-to environment where we have zone coaches that are available to kind of guide them through the initial kind of learn-to experience, and then they can choose to go into a lesson program at a later time. A couple of things that are just really, really magical about this is, I mean, the biggest thing is just the families staying together. I think there's the desire to do it as a family, and then this year especially, the comfort of just putting your kid in a program and walking away is going to be very different. And a couple things that we're doing this year, you know, I think a couple things with snow play is it has some inherent benefits in an environment where we're trying to keep people physically distant, and that we have the acreage in the zones. Whether you're on skis or boards or a tube, there is some natural physical distancing that is going to happen. We are We don't see the need to do a ton of capacity constraint. We are instead taking the approach of introducing a few new zones this year. We're lucky that we have the space to spread out a little bit. And being kind of a lower capital year, we had to get really creative. And we took about 1.5 acres that we're going to introduce another experience just so we can spread people out. And this happened kind of organically last year. We called it Snowman Land. We went to there's a meadow just west of the resort that's on the owned property. And we walked out there and there was like 200 snowmen. And we didn't even know when we just kind of organically happened. And it was so magical and it became an attraction in and of its own. And so we're going to really just kind of organize that experience, animate it a little bit. And that's just a way, really no capital, some animation and a little bit of operating expense, very little labor. As a way to kind of spread people out, and then also a walking trail so that there's another experience if the kind of most popular venues do get a little bit crowded.
And this is a ticket. This isn't free. This is a ticketed thing that you're doing. So that
and I think that's one myth that I think we find ourselves addressing quite a bit, where people say, well, there's no money in snow play. There can be. If you have a value in the experience over at Soda Springs, this is more than 2/3 of our revenue and even higher as a percentage of our income. A couple of things to consider when you're evaluating your snow play is, I hear the argument a lot that, well, it's going to take up a parking spot for a high yielding guest. But, I think we need to consider the snow paint families. They come with 4 to 6 people in a car. They are younger, they're new to the environment, and so their churn rate throughout the day is every couple of hours. And so you are able to kind of backfill in ways that you can't necessarily with the skier that comes for the whole 8-hour experience. We've really tried to simplify the model where, it's not, do you want a lesson? Do you want rentals? Do you want, at what time? You just come, you pay for access, and you choose how you start the experience. There's no rush to get to the, oh crap, I'm late for my lesson and the rental shop is really sweaty and this is no fun. It's really on their time. And it's been growing every year. And every year we've just added to the experience.
I think this is going to be poised to really be tested to its full potential because of COVID, and because it naturally fits, those social bubbles we have to stick to, the wide open space that we're going to have a whole new winter enthusiast showing up who is not familiar, as you've already encountered in years past, not familiar with snow and the environment. And so I can see this is going to, it's going to be interesting to talk with you after the season to really see how you put into play all of these things that will be under the lens. And I know Mountain High is another resort that has discovered, an area that people were just kind of coming from the urban areas just to play in the snow, snowball flights, snow canos, that kind of stuff. And then they made it more organized, programmed around it, charge. And it's not underestimating that this year especially, we may need to cater to this group and not overthink some of the simple things that you're doing of snowmen and snow angels and all of that, and the experience of just getting out with the family. So what about retail? How does retail fit in, especially with kids and warming stuff? Is there anything, and then the capacity issues and getting inside, are you going to find interesting ways there to capitalize on retail?
Yeah, and I think that's the solve that we're all trying to solve to right now. And not by design, but by circumstance, we have very limited indoor space at Soda Springs. So we've already put quite a few solves in place with, outdoor pickup windows for food and beverage that we installed a couple years ago, just because we did not have the inside space. The rental operation and retail operation over there, it's pretty slick and it's pretty quick. We're just obviously going to have very, very limited indoor capacity. But I think one of the other things that works with this model is that there's kind of a natural pacing of arrival, right? Where it's not like the ski area where everyone's here at 9 o'clock and everyone needs services at the same time. Because families drive up from the bay and back in a day, 2.5 to 3 to 4 hours. We have lines at our windows sometimes at 2 and 3 o'clock. And so there is a natural pacing that helps us to kind of organize the outdoor kind of adaptations to rental and to retail and food and beverage this year.
And so you said there's not much you're going to have to do as far as, the COVID protocols for these kids. Is there masks in this whole snow play area, and bathrooms are still accessible inside? Are you putting in extra?
Yep. Yeah, adaptations we've made at both of our resorts is additional restroom areas. We have, very, very tight protocols around masks and sanitization. And, our experience this summer was the willingness to adopt new ways of doing things and operating was really high. And I know a lot of areas had some pushback. The communication ahead of time about here's what to expect. I know this has been a big topic in the industry is, spend your time and your resources in communicating what to expect. And we have a better conversation and relationship with our guests in a lot of ways. And we just have to use that channel. But yeah, it's just simple adaptations, and crowd management is going to be king.
So it's not a reservation-based play area. You don't have to reserve. You can just show up.
Yeah.
And you have a system for if you have one of these crazy crushed days where, it's beautiful, it's fresh snow, and it's a Saturday and they're all thinking, let's go play.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, just that's a theme in so much of what we've been designing for the experiences this winter is, really getting to the core of our sports, which is outdoors, luckily. And particularly Soda Springs, that has been, how it's evolved is just focused on the outdoor experience and adding these 2 additional zones. We have a high level of confidence that we'll be able to move crowds around. I mean, it will take some management, but naturally, if the tubing line gets long, people head over to, the snow play area. If that gets too crowded, they head over to the ski and snowboard. So it does have some natural, that we'll certainly have to have a higher presence to make sure that it's, responsibly guided.
Yeah. So the final question we'll move on to Francois is are you, well, I mean, just when that increased demand happens, I mean, just the crossover basically is what I'm getting at is, so if people show up to ski or ride, they can, are you crossing back and forth between these 2 operations saying, well, why don't you go, are you communicating to the guest for all this new kind of expanded play area, and that there might be some issues with getting access to the ski and ride experience because of capacity issues? Are you doing any different things with your communication to guests in advance of this winter?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it, and the topic of this conversation is, people are looking to get outside and do something, but they're also looking to do something new, right? Like we saw that this summer in that our #1 product was a multi-sport package where, over the week, kids could skateboard, they could get on a bike, they could try parkour. And when we communicated that ahead of time, that we have a single product that is going to introduce you to, multiple experiences, it leapt ahead of skateboard, which has 50 years of history as being the #1 product for Woodward. And so part of the, Soda Springs messaging really is, one, come here because there's more than just skiing, but be aware of these, new venues that are put in place to make sure that you can trust the experience.
Great. Thanks so much, Amy. We'll probably have some questions, and the audience should throw their questions up in the chat area. And Amy, we can't in this format, Maggie, right? Amy can't directly answer them.
She can go ahead and answer them. Any of the panelists, they can open their Q&A, which is the bottom of the screen, and questions will pop up. So if anything's directed straight at you, feel free to go type in answers.
Okay. And the audience can see her response.
She can either choose to answer privately, or anybody can directly to that person, or for everybody to say it's an option.
Okay, great. We'll try and bring in the questions, but sometimes we don't.
Absolutely.
So next up, let's talk with Francois Goulet, who's the president of the Rossignol North America. welcome, Francois, and tell us a little bit through your lens, you know, as a manufacturer of several product categories, what you're doing to prepare for this season, and that based on things that you're seeing. What's a little bit different for you guys? What are you seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. So, you know, when you think about our industry plans for the season, we're way ahead of when consumers are in the activities. And, you know, we do our sell-in to our retail partners, you know, in January, February, and March. And when you think about roll back the clock and, you know, this was when COVID was starting to hit, ski areas were closing, you know, retail stores were closing, people were confining at home, the economy, the stock market. I mean, it was a real dark period, if we all remember that, back in March and April.
We're trying not to remember.
Yeah. So we, you know, definitely it was very difficult for us to plan accordingly, and we had a lot of uncertainty in terms of what does this mean for the next winter season. So, you know, we're a bit fortunate. We have, you know, we have some activities. We own bike brands. Felt, obviously, Rossignol is in mountain bike. So, you know, during the spring and the summer, a little bit to what Amy was saying, and you were saying at the intro, you know, we were kind of caught off guard in terms of the level of participation we were seeing in the outdoors, whether it was in park, at trailheads. I mean, our sales of bikes were through the roof, with some interesting nuances. You know, we saw entry-level bikes, you know, double sales year over year in our Felt brand. We saw kids' bikes. You know, everybody was selling out of kids' bikes. You couldn't find similar with like trying to find a tent in June and in July was impossible. Same thing with kids' bikes. So, you know, these insights, you know, made us think about, okay, so we are seeing people that are, you know, they want to be outside, they want to recreate. Families seems to be a real theme in terms of activities. As I was saying, kids and entry-level bikes. A lot of people, I think, new people were getting into the activities, which Amy was referring to. And I think as an industry, we'll talk about that, I hope, but I think we have a big opportunity to bring newcomers to our activities. And, you know, that's kind of an opportunity in this crazy world that we have now. So anyway, in getting those insights and getting, you know, a lot of information from our key retailers also about how their summer was shaping up, we were able to, you know, to adapt our supply chain. You know, we manufacture about 80% of the product in our own factories, so we have a bit of flexibility. You know, we came out of the preseason order, the period I was referring to, you know, it was doom and gloom. I think the industry was probably down 15 to 20% in general, which is a big hit. But we started, you know, believing that some activities would be really strong this coming winter based on what we were seeing. So we ramped up our production and inventory in product like ski touring, for example, or cross-country skiing. Fat bikes, although, you know, we manufacture those in Asia and the supply chain is a little bit longer. But we were able to kind of reload an inventory and take a gamble, I would say, in terms of, you know, we think these are going to be activities that are going to be important. One, you know, you can recreate in an environment that's relatively safe. It's, you know, it's something you can do with your family. So we brought in some additional inventory during the summer. And, you know, what we saw in August and in September is our retail network saw the same thing and believed the same thing. And they came back to us, you know, in buying more product, especially in these activities. I mean, our Nordic business is up more than high double digit right now, year over year. And it hasn't snowed yet. And we all know Nordic is really driven by snow. So this gave us quite a bit of confidence in how the season is going to shape up. And we saw the opportunity also to, you know, to bring and capture newcomers to these sports. You know, for the first time, how we think about, you know, our brand voice and our storytelling, you know, we're elevating, I shouldn't say for the first time, but we're really elevating these activities on our on our marketing, whether it's on our website or on our various social media channels this fall. We're not necessarily targeting the core audience, for example, for cross country, which is, we know they're going to be there. I mean, these people are passionate about the sport, and they're going to do what they do. But we're more targeting, family type of messaging and how great it is and easy access it is for these activities. So, we're also going to elevate, and Reese will be happy about that, but we're going to elevate the message around our Nordic touring centers. We have a lot of partners that give access to Nordic product to consumers. So we're going to make sure that the message is out there and where people can try the equipment, where they can rent the equipment, and when they can recreate. So, in this kind of doom and gloom year, I would say, we saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and we feel pretty bullish about how the season is going to shape up, especially for those activities. But even for alpine traditional skiing, we think there's going to be a resurgence in kids business and also entry-level type of product. People are definitely shifting their discretionary dollars. They're not going on southern trips, or they're not flying all over the place, and they're going to consume locally, and they're going to want to be outdoor, because we're all working either at home or in confinement, and people want to be outside. They want to enjoy nature, which is a good thing.
So Francois, do you you'd mentioned that you're seeing some entry level. Are you seeing? Do you think that the purchasing that's happening, increased purchasing, is from a crossover crowd in Nordic, or a whole new, just trying this new activity I've never done before? Do you have any sense whether it's a crossover or a whole new person?
I think there's going to be a lot of that. I also think that some people may have experienced cross-country skiing in the past, and for whatever reason, for snow or whatever reason, they haven't been participating. We think a lot of people are going to say, well, this is a great way to recreate during the winter, and I'm going to get back into it. And when I say entry level, people are not necessarily going to buy, their super expensive product. The supplier base offers a really good value to get a family into the sport. So I think there's going to be a lot of this. One thing that's interesting when you think about the retailer footprint, we're seeing a lot of retailers that had abandoned the Nordic skiing category, and they're getting back into it because they're seeing the opportunity. So that's interesting. We're seeing a lot of our customers who are alpine traditional retailers coming back to us and say, I'm buying some Nordic from you because I believe I'm going to have a lot of demand for it. We don't sell any snowshoes, but I believe snowshoes is going to be the same thing. It's going to be on fire all winter.
Yeah. Any other categories that you see will see a demand at the retail level?
Yeah, I mean anything that will protect you. So for apparel, that will protect you for being out there and warm and dry. I think we'll see that. Although this summer apparel sales, what we read in general, were soft. But if you want to recreate outside, you need in the winter, you need the right, obviously the right apparel and the right garments. So I think we're going to see across the board some robust sales because I just believe that there's going to be increased participation in anything that's outdoor this winter, as we've seen in the summer.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I did have another question, but it's popped out of my head here. So we'll probably come back to you, Francois. But let's thank you for sharing all of that. And I think we're going to go to Reese Brown now. Reese, Executive Director of the Cross Country Ski Areas Association. Thank you, Reese, for joining us. You get to speak to a lot of your members on a regular basis. I know you guys are getting together. Getting together with a lot of your members to kind of understand both your challenges and opportunities. So can you share a little bit about their perspective, be a voice for them in what their are you hearing the same thing, that they're getting ready to see, huge increases, and what are some of the things that they're doing to be ready for that?
Yes. Well, thank you, Olivia, and it's a pleasure to be here. I do have the opportunity to speak to both ski areas, retailers, and suppliers. All of them are members of our organization. So we do have open lines of communication there. And much to Francois's point, back in March, there was this doom and gloom, what's going to happen. But then we started to see this outdoor phenomenon come up, and the frenzy at the trailheads and the bike sales. And I think that was an indication as we saw it progress throughout the summer, and then early on when businesses started to open again and mountain bike operations began, paddling operations began, and they were absolutely floored with the amount of traffic that they had. So there is a very good indicator, I think, that that outdoor environment and that outdoor need will continue. Certainly, as we approach fall now, this indoor health clubs and just everything indoor is still becoming, still very concerning. So people are going to continue to look for those activities outdoors and what can be done. In terms of what we're doing as an industry to prepare, we've been running industry Zoom calls every other week all summer into the fall, and talking not about how we can accommodate our traffic from last year in this new situation, but how we can accommodate a significant increase in skiers this year because of this situation, and also do it in as safe a manner as possible due to the virus. So we've been having, as I said, those conversations continuously, daily, basically, and understanding that this is such a fluid situation. We do feel as an industry that we are in a pretty good situation to accommodate this increase that we think is coming. We don't have many of the choke points, I would say, that some of the other industries have. We don't have shuttle buses for the most part from remote parking lots, although some do. We don't have a big backup in rentals too often. So we feel that we can accommodate this new crew. We're also looking at training the participant. And as everyone knows now, we're working from home. Perhaps not only are you working from home and your significant other, but you may have 1 to 4 kids working from home. So the crowds at home are really driving people outside for anything they can do. Everyone's willing to walk the dog now, or take the garbage out, anything to get outside. We think that hopefully this will translate into the opportunity to get out on the trails midweek. Don't become that Saturday morning skier. Looking at snowshoeing and fat biking, certainly the cyclists understand biking, so the learning curve is relatively flat there. And there are those that are absolutely terrified of sliding on anything, so cross-country skis are also not a consideration. So snowshoes become a great opportunity, and that's something that we're also looking at and increasing fleets, rental fleets there.
Great. And do you see, I had asked this question of Amy, which is, do you think, or maybe it was Francois, the crossover, do you think you're going to see, if they're all expecting this increase, is it from completely new people or from crossover people who might be thinking, well, if I have to plan ahead for a ski or snowboard ticket, I would be better served to get ready to do some alternative activities?
My feeling is that there's going to be a lot of new people to the cross-country ski resorts this year, be it cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, or fat biking. There is, roughly 30% crossover, 35% crossover with cross-country skiers in alpine or snowboard, and again for cycling. So that group has some understanding. But in talking to the retailers, to Francois's point about August and September, several had their best August ever. Year over year in cross-country ski retail sales. And in talking to them and asking what people were buying, they were entry-level packages. Same thing with many of our ski areas that are selling season passes now. They're saying their season pass sales are up 100, 200% over last year. And I asked them, those names, who are they? Are they regular people just getting it early? And they're like, no, they're new people coming in. They're names we don't recognize. Now, some of those could be lapsed skiers, but some of those also could be new skiers. And what's really interesting is your person new to an activity generally is not thinking this far out. which is really interesting to me. And I'm wondering if that's because of the equipment shortage and just the capacity issues from the summer, or if they're just super excited. Not sure yet.
And it's probably a combination of both, because we've all been trained that if there's a perceived high demand, you better run out and go get your toilet paper rolls. So it's
exactly. I mean,
mindset we've all been trained to do, which is, panic buy and get in there early. I think some of that's at play. I can certainly see that in my Boston suburbs. People are feeling like things are going to run out. We better hurry up and get the kids geared up earlier than normal. So, but
yeah, no, I think so. They've been trained. It was interesting. I heard of a bike shop that recently closed its doors literally like a few weeks ago because they could not get enough product to stock the shelves to remain open and be viable. Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting anecdote. But I think you're right. People are going to buy early, and you should buy early. I know the suppliers are working day and night to find product in every section of the world to bring it to the U.S. And I hope we can sell a huge number of additional skis this year. It'd be very exciting.
Yeah. So are your members looking at any opportunities? You mentioned the training, but I think there may be a pickle we get ourselves into of underestimating this person who is completely new to the winter activity environment, the winter environment in general, and being ready to explain some of the basics. And so you mentioned training. Are your members actively talking about how do we communicate that we are here for them, and if they're not aware, and then when they get here, how do we, how with COVID and not being able to kind of do group lessons and all that, how are you going to teach them?
So that's a loaded question. There's a lot there. I think many of our ski areas have skiers that show up to learn to ski that day that 2 hours prior had no idea that that's what they were going to do. So that person, you really can't message to them because they just, hey, let's go do this today. Okay. And off they go. We did have many conversations and seminars around that communication from the ski area, as well as what we're doing from the association to tell people we are open, we are following COVID rules. We do understand this. I think we're uniquely positioned to attract that person because we don't have with the exception of some ski areas, we don't have the big crowds. They don't all show up for the first lift ride. And so they are spread out. And so when they come in, historically, we've been able to accommodate. We are looking at, okay, how are we going to deal with that increased demand? Certainly in the rental department, one of the things that the industry has done recently is kind of offer a mini lesson. So we found that people would come in, they'd rent equipment, they'd go out the door, then they come back in and say, how do you put the stuff on? And they had already decided they didn't want a lesson. So that's become something that we've done. We're talking about short video loops that can be played in the rental department that show how to put the boot on, how to step into the ski, and most importantly, how to put the pole strap on. So we are looking at that. In terms of lessons, we just did a call last week with several people from PSIA and talked about the lessons. And we do feel that we can run 10-person group lessons if that need is there. And for many of the ski areas, it is. And we've talked about this as this entry-level group comes in this year. We don't want to be in a position where we have to turn them away because we don't have instructors or we don't have enough space. So we've talked about expanding the teaching area, bringing in more instructors, and expanding the rental fleet so they can be accommodated. I know some ski areas already have hundreds of lessons booked for winter.
Yeah. And one thing we had heard from the Southern Hemisphere when we had sort of calls together with them as they were going through their winter season was the huge win with anything to do with warming products because of the limited capacity and the idea that your car is your base lodge and you're going to be outside longer and all of that. So, and that was, Francois, what I was trying to remember to ask was, you were talking about other, segments, and for sure we're hearing of a few resorts that are doing pop-up little retail for those quick warming items that the person new to the winter environment, might not remember, and then they don't have the capacity to get as much flow through the retail shop. So there was some creative ideas about pop-up retail in and outside.
Yeah, no, we've talked about that, fire pits, heat lamp type things. What's unique to cross country, I think, it's separate from alpine and some of the other things, is you arrive. If you're just going skiing, you arrive, you get your skis on, and you go. There's not a lot of waiting, and the first part of your experience is not sitting stagnant on a chairlift for 6 or 8 minutes. So you don't lose that body temperature to start out with, and then continue to lose it or have that break. So we see a lot of people. They come, they ski, they're out there for a while, they come back and they leave. That is a very big concern for me, is what do you do with that person who is really improperly dressed, shows up in denims or no long underwear, and they want to go out there and they're freezing, the snow is stuck to them and they want to come inside. One of the things that we've talked a little bit about, actually a lot about, is that our lodges and our whatever base facility that our ski areas have are not as crowded as you see on the alpine side. We just don't have that volume of people. And we talked about trail passes, okay, we need to have touchless trail passes. And many of our ski areas said, no, we need to have that person in to buy their trail pass, because then they're going to buy hats and gloves in our retail operation, because it's all in the same place. So we want that person to come in. We don't want them to stay long, but we do want them to come in. So I think for that person that needs to come in, we can accommodate them. That person that wants to, we can accommodate them. We can't accommodate buses of those people, but we generally don't have that. And even with this new influx, a lot of people have looked at, a lot of our skiers have looked at how do they annex some of the space in a building that they're not using? How do they, fascinating one for me on your rental huddle was moving your skis and poles outside for your rentals and just having booths inside. And we've been talking about that and pushing that. And very many of our ski areas are going to do that. So there are ways that I think we can accommodate that person who is totally new.
And this might be a question for both you, Reese, and Amy, which is, are you seeing more interest in media for the core, the non-ski and riding activities? Are you seeing more interest from media for cross country? And Amy, are you seeing more media seeing what you're doing and foreseeing that there's going to be a demand, so they're fishing around for stories?
Yeah, I can start with that. I'm absolutely seeing more media. Through a previous job, I had the opportunity to spend a fair amount of time with freelancers, and I continue to go back to those freelancers year after year and pitch some story. And they've always said, well, if somebody is of interest, then yeah, we'll write something, and it never happens. This year, as I pitch them again, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. I mean, it's absolutely a very much of a renewed interest. We've had several pieces posted already.
Amy, are you seeing an interest in, what you're doing there from media?
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing, right now, early on as we lead into the season, is the question is more of, what is the ski industry going to look like this year, and how is it going to be different than last year is the main question. And I think that there's an opportunity to, to own the conversation, control the conversation, and really talk about, what is new, as opposed to, well, it's not like it was last year, right? And I think that's one thing we have going for us, that with so many new people that are coming into the sports, they don't have context of, well, it's different than last year. We have an opportunity to really focus on the experience and give them an experience that's been different than how we've done things in the last couple of decades. And really with the media, the few inquiries we have, they're trying to take you down the doom and gloom path of it. It's going to be crowded, or you're going to be open, and to kind of answer a lot of those questions with, yeah, we've made significant site modifications and access, changes in how we control our access, and we have introduced and kind of optimized alternative experiences that that helps to kind of change the conversation, and they quickly get excited about that and not try to take you down the, oh my God, path, which we all need to be ready for sure.
Yeah. And I think the path of, people fishing around to see how you're doing things incorrectly,
Absolutely.
I think that's something to be on the lookout. So I like the idea of pushing back more with all that we are doing during a pandemic, which is producing a a space to, get fresh air, exercise, and be healthy physically and emotionally. I think that was a big take home from our Southern Hemisphere huddles, which was really that empowered them every day, and the staff, with the message that we're doing a lot of good right now at a time when people are suffering, and spinning that conversation to focus on that positive. So we have Alexa Bernotavicz, who is the Mountain Ops Director and Assistant General Manager at Bretton Woods, joining us. Hi, Alexa, how are you?
Hello.
Alexa, you have Bretton Woods. For those who aren't familiar, it's Bretton Woods, and then across the street is the Mount Washington Hotel. Between these two properties, you have the downhill experience. You're a great learning area, but then across the street you have acres and acres of trails for cross country and snowshoe, and the fabulous hotel there. But you also do a lot of other activities, or have done in the past, winter zip touring and kids snowmobiling. And I know some of these activities are going to stay, some are going to go away. Maybe that will change, as the season starts. But take us a little bit through, beyond the downhill experience, how are you going to offer up, a winter playground to an increased demand of new outdoor enthusiasts?
Well, that's a big question. So, similar to what everybody has already said, we're trying to establish, and really just look at what are our pluses that we have, and the things that we can promote, and the things that we can operationally pull off, and then where are the choke points, and how do we avoid putting crowds in the choke points. And on the alpine side, we have a small base area here. So, someone like Amy, who has acres and acres of snow playground, I'm very envious, because we would love to have that acreage, but we just don't. So we're going to have to really focus on the Nordic side of things, providing opportunities for people who maybe didn't plan ahead and who show up, and we are having a busy day, and the alpine experience is not going to work out for them. So being able to push them to the Nordic side, offer up the opportunities for snowshoeing, fat mountain, the fat bike rentals, that kind of stuff. So those are all the things that we're looking at. And plus we've got, the resort guests, and being able to do things like sleigh rides and possibly dog sledding. We're looking at bringing that back. We haven't had it for a couple years. So that's basically where we're at. I mean, I agree, we had a very busy summer here in the White Mountains. Our trailheads were packed. People were mountain biking, hiking, fishing. You couldn't find a tent in any of the stores, so people were out backpacking, rock climbing. So I think we're going to continue to see that throughout the winter, and it's just trying to figure out how that all fits into our operation, when I know we're going to be so operationally focused on the alpine side of things. We're trying to also make sure that we remember that we've got all these other opportunities as well. And it's just I think my biggest challenge is going to be staffing and space. So how do I take advantage of all of that?
And have you thought ahead to, okay, so I am going to have increased demand, I have space issues, but I'm working through them. Have you anticipated this growth by ordering more product of these activities, or adding any new activities? We've heard, like, from Big Snow implemented a new product called a Snow Go bike, that they're going to use as a way to kind of take some pressure off the skiing and riding. There's other snow bikes out there. There's other types of new products that are coming online. Are you getting into any new products, or investing in more product of a category?
We are going to invest in some more fat bikes, because we do feel like that's going to be, it has been increasingly popular over the past winters. And I think that will just be even bigger. And especially if we have kind of a low snow year, it's the perfect recreational experience, because you don't need snow. It's fun on the snow, but you can do it on the ice, you can do it on the frozen ground. So it really is perfect. Whereas, the snowshoes and the cross-country skis, you do need a pretty decent base. So we are going to increase our fat bike rental fleet. Our Nordic rental fleet is pretty good, so we haven't felt the need to increase that. And we're also, we're taking the conservative approach to start the season with. We don't want to commit a lot of capital or, commit to having an activity that we then can't manage. And so we're just going to sort of start the season and see how things go. And if it looks like, there's other opportunities to add activities, then, we have that opportunity if we have the staff in place. But our sort of general overall approach is to really just sort of start conservatively and see what happens.
And you get a lot of families, is correct? That's
we do. Yep.
So
a lot of families, and those folks, normally the Alpine family, the beginner Alpine family is kind of one of our bread and butter families, and we're not sure that they're going to participate on the Alpine side because of the experience is going to be so different. I feel strongly that if you're a skier and you're used to just your normal ski day, then you'll be able to adjust really well. I think anybody that's new to the Alpine ski sport is going to have a hard time adjusting to the changes for this season, just because, not being able to come inside as much to warm up, and maybe, I don't see it, but we'll just have to see what happens.
So if you're thinking through that, what do you think of, Amy creating the family, friendly, playgrounds, the snow play areas?
I think I love that idea. I mean, I think that is a kind of experience that will do well, because anybody can show up for that. It's got you have a lot of different options there. You have a lot of space to spread out. And I think being able to do sort of that, adventure snow play zone is perfect. And if you have the space for it, I think that's a really good way to manage families and providing a bunch of different things for people to do. I mean, we're going to have our tubing. That will still happen, but again, we are gonna make sure that people have a reservation, because we'll have to manage traffic flow. We know what our typical numbers look like on any given day, and just anticipating what those numbers look like, being able to manage things by having at least a heads up about how many people are going to be coming on any given day is going to be really helpful for us.
And are you reservation based, or are you allowed to have a day of show up? Are you which direction?
We're going to start the season with a reservation based system. So, online ticket sales for pretty much everything, rentals, tubing, tickets, anything like that, we will require a reservation. However, if it's a Tuesday and we're not super busy and someone walks up to the window, we certainly won't turn people away. And I think that's probably how most of our days will be managed. But at least by having the online reservation system in place, we'll have some sort of gauge of how many people are coming.
Okay. And, for Alexa and for anyone on the panel, an interesting question was brought up by Jonathan Weasel, which is, collaborating with other operations to kind of work together to embrace this new outdoor enthusiast. So, Amy, you had the question of whether you're going to be working with Royal Gorge's Nordic trail system. You guys don't offer cross country, and is that something that you're actively thinking? Whether it's we talked to some people whether if the rental gets stressed with too much, whether they can work with a rental shop, rental retail shop down the road to kind of put some of the pressure down on them, or a Nordic center or a snowshoe center or a snowmobile center, or just a way to kind of be working together to embrace the winter outdoor enthusiast. Does anybody have?
Yeah, I can actually speak to that. We do, it's not necessarily a partner, but we refer our guests to a local snowmobile company that rents snowmobiles, and it's right next to the resort. It's basically just across the street. And that has always been very popular, and we will be doing that again this year, because I think, again, if we have a good snow winter, snowmobiling will be one of those activities that people are really going to participate in. If it's any indication, the four-wheeling up here in the North Country has become extremely popular, and all summer long, you couldn't rent a four-wheeler. Every weekend they were sold out. So I suspect snowmobiling will be similar.
And what about AT for Amy and Alexa? We've heard a lot of resorts are considering how they're going to offer that charge, you know, and all the interest in you know, the AT gear. Carolyn Stimson from Wachusett said she's just been selling out of that stuff, and this is, you know, Wachusett down the road, you know, small-ish mountain. Are you considering that, Amy, at Boreal is uphill access?
We're not. You know, we happen to be right across the street from one of the most popular backcountry zones in North Lake Tahoe. So Castle Peak is literally on the other side of our parking lot. And so, you know, there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of guide services that are operating out of Castle Peak. And so, you know, it's already a pretty crowded marketplace here for us. And I kind of made a note when the question was in the chat. And I think it's a compelling thing to look at in a different way than we have before, where a lot of times, you know, we're just trying to grab market share and hold on to it. And, you know, when we get full, we just kind of say, hey, you're out of luck. You know, I think we all have skin in the game to try to manage this tidal wave that is coming to us. And, you know, for businesses that are complementary to what we do, whether it's backcountry skiing, I point because it's right behind me, or, you know, Nordic up at Royal Gorge, I think this is a time to kind of collaborate and say, you know, what is your capacity look like? And then the other thing I was thinking about this is, you know, because we are limited in a lot of ways with our capacity, we've all had to make adjustments with yield, right? I mean, that's a reality. I think on one hand, the willingness to pay is as strong as I have ever seen it. You know, people want the premium product. They want something they can trust. But not everybody can afford that. And so, you know, having conversations with the municipalities, you know, the Forest Service, the state parks, that, you know, we will probably be sending people to some of those areas that could come up previously and get a deeply discounted product that's not as available as it was in the last couple of years. I think the value channel in your specific market remains really important, but this is going to be a year where every parking spot and every, you know, seat on a chair has an opportunity that we need to make sure we grab. So I think it's going to be a different way to collaborate with our business partners and our, you know, private or public partners as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say from the cross-country ski side, we're absolutely willing to collaborate. What we found at many of our ski areas that have alpine and cross-country, they don't even drive too many people to the cross-country center. So I'm hoping that changes this year, to Amy's point, that just because they're going to need to do that.
Great. And Francois, have you seen an uptick in that category as well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
We're seeing, you know, I believe we're going to see a lot of in-resort uphill skiing, you know, just because, you know, not everybody has a AV course or wants to get a guide, and there's a risk factor. And definitely we're seeing that equipment right now being sold at a really high pace. And I believe there's more and more people that are just going to do uphill resort skiing.
Yeah.
And I think that's an opportunity also for resorts, and how do they manage that?
So I think that the theme for we're at the top of the hour now, but the theme that I clearly heard is, you know, we have some immense opportunities, some silver linings with all of this COVID, you know, and all the things that we hear, which is, you know, not wasting a good crisis, and we have a really good opportunity that I hope we embrace and don't forget in all of this, that we want to be as welcoming to this new population as possible, even with all the constraints. And I think it was Amy that brought it up, or maybe it was Reese, that, you know, remembering they don't have anything to compare it to. So it might not be that horrible for them. What we perceive as horrible, it may be to them just, my God, I'm outside the house, I'm with my family, and that's good enough for me. And I'm out, you know, and so, you know, yeah, Maggie, you want to send us out with a final closing comment? Oh, you're muted.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Thank you, Olivia, for leading that conversation. I know that there was so much that we did not even get a chance to cover. And there was a lot going on in the Q&A, and I saw a lot of activity between all the panelists and everything. So it's great to see that there's so much interaction going on. So thank you to our panelists for taking the time with us today. I also want to thank all of our attendees for taking the time to join us today. It is a crazy time of year for all of us, and we know that. However, I do think that this is a really important topic to address, and the opportunities are kind of once in a lifetime what we have to face going into this season. Just want to remind everybody that if you want to take a look back at this later or share with anybody else, that a recording of this town hall will be posted on our website later today. Just once again, thank you to everybody. Thanks for your time. Stay healthy and have a great day.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.